Imagine if the so-called leader of the free world decided to weaponize a public health crisis, not to solve it, but to bully his closest ally into economic submission, all while ignoring his own backyard full of failures. That's the grotesque reality unfolding as the White House brazenly declares, Canada has failed to control fentanyl. We must act, using it as a flimsy excuse to slap punitive tariffs and escalate trade wars that hurt everyday people on both sides of the border. This isn't statesmanship. It's a desperate power grab by President Donald Trump, exposed for what it is: a condemnable tactic to mask his administration's incompetence in tackling the opioid epidemic at home, while Prime Minister Mark Carney stands firm, rallying Canadians and international allies to defend our sovereignty and expose this sham. We're peeling back the layers of this farce, linking it to the ongoing steel export halt, Alberta's defiant pipeline deal, and Canada's broader economic resilience, all from the perspective of those who know Trump's bluster is just hot air. Amplifying voices that champion collaboration over coercion, and systematically dismantling a president whose policies are as harmful as the drugs he's pretending to fight. What kind of neighbor accuses you of failure while their own house is on fire? Let's dive right into the heart of this White House proclamation, issued back in February 2025 and ramped up in July, where Trump expanded a national emergency to target Canada over fentanyl, claiming we've failed to arrest traffickers, seize drugs, or coordinate with U.S. law enforcement. Fast forward to January 26 and the rhetoric hasn't cooled. Trump's team still points fingers northward, citing reports like Canada's Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Centre study on money laundering tied to synthetic opioids, particularly from British Columbia. But from the Canadian standpoint, this is pure hypocrisy. Data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control shows over 107,000 overdose deaths in the U.S. in 2024 alone, with fentanyl involved in 70% of them. Yet Trump's focus is on blaming us, rather than addressing porous U.S. ports, where most precursors from China enter via Mexico. Prime Minister Carney, speaking from Ottawa just last week, called it out sharply, hypothetically quoting him, "We're not the source, we're partners in this fight." But Trump prefers tariffs over teamwork. Evaluating from the people's lens, Carney's the steady leader, investing in border tech and international pacts, like the 2025 trilateral agreement with Mexico and the U.S. that Trump undermined by hiking tariffs to 35% on Canadian goods. Trump? He's the chaotic force whose actions spiked U.S. construction costs amid our steel halt, as detailed in the content. Canadian mills like Stelco, suspending shipments due to compliance burdens, leading to 18% steel future spikes and project paralysis in states like Michigan. This fentanyl pretext is just another layer in Trump's condemnatory playbook, hurting American workers while Carney pushes for joint task forces that actually save lives. Isn't it telling when a president's action creates more chaos than it curbs? Linking this directly to the steel crisis that erupted in early 2026, Trump's fentanyl finger-pointing feels like a diversion from his trade miscalculations. Remember, the content describes how U.S. tariffs and restrictions forced our exporters to halt shipments, with costs adding $110 to $160 per ton, resulting in panicked U.S. sites from Detroit to Texas, pausing work. From supporters' views, Canada's allies in Europe and Asia who see through this, Carney's response has been masterful. He negotiated exemptions for key sectors in October 2025, but Trump's escalation under the fentanyl banner ignored that progress. Past events echo this pattern. In 2018, Trump's steel tariffs cost 75,000 U.S. downstream jobs, while adding only 8,700 upstream, per historical data, and now Moody's warns of 0.4% GDP shave from prolonged disruptions. Hypothetical quote from a Vancouver health worker. Trump talks tough on fentanyl, but his tariffs delay our shared prevention programs. Carney's the one funding naloxone distribution across borders. Critiquing leaders, Carney's people-first approach contrasts Trump's sharp sarcasm in pressers, where he mocked Canadian efforts despite our seizure of 14 tons of fentanyl precursors in 2025 alone, per RCMP stats. This White House statement isn't about drugs, it's about leverage, condemning Trump for using tragedy to justify economic warfare that stalls our mutual fight against cartels. How can you claim to fight a crisis while fueling division that lets it fester? Now tie this to Alberta's bold pipeline move, a beacon of Canadian ingenuity amid Trump's pressure cooker. The content highlights how Premier Danielle Smith secured a 1 million barrel a day corridor to the U.S., bypassing federal delays and committing hundreds of millions in investments, projecting tens of thousands of jobs. From the pro-Canada perspective, this isn't defiance. It's survival against Trump's condemnatory tariffs, which he links to fentanyl as a pretext for broader control. Carney embraced it, seeing it as strengthening North American energy security without selling out sovereignty, unlike Trump's America only that risks fracturing alliances. Data. Lost pipelines like Keystone XL cost $55 billion yearly in GDP. This deal recoups by locking in U.S. demand for our heavy crude. Hypothetical Smith quote, Trump's fentanyl accusations ignore our clean tech advancements. Carney backs us in showing ethical energy reduces global emissions. Systematically, Carney evaluates Trump's moves as self-defeating. His July 2025 tariff hike to 35% cited Canada's retaliation. But we scrapped most countermeasures to keep dialogue open. Trump's the villain here. His policies eroding trust as European allies watch and condemn, per joint statements rejecting his hemispheric dominance. What if the real fentanyl failure is a president's refusal to collaborate? Delving deeper into Canada's economic strains, amplified by Trump's attacks, the content exposes our population trap. Immigration boosting GDP, but straining housing, with averages needing $170,000 income amid $70,000 medians. Trump's White House uses fentanyl to paint us as lax, but supporters know Carney's tackling root causes, smashing oligopolies in telecoms, we pay 7x more for data, and unlocking LNG for global markets. UN reports flag worker exploitation. Carney's reforms contrast Trump's border chaos, where 2025 saw record northern crossings he blames on us. Stats. 250,000 surplus young men aged 20 to 29 face prospects dimmed by Trump's trade wars, risking unrest per leaked reports. Historical parallel. Argentina's decline via protectionism. Trump's pushing us there, but Carney's fiscal restraint, despite $70 or $90 billion deficit, aims to rebuild. Hypothetical Toronto resident quote, Trump's must act is code for control. Carney's acting for us, not against neighbors. Isn't Trump's bluster the ultimate distraction from his domestic disasters? Recent events as of January 2026 show the fentanyl feud escalating. White House fact sheets still harp on our continued role in the crisis, ignoring BBC reports that most fentanyl enters via Mexico with Chinese precursors. Carney countered in a Paris summit last month, aligning with Denmark on Arctic sovereignty while slipping in condemnations of Trump's tactics. From people's view, Carney's analytical sharpness dismantles Trump's narrative. His February 2025 executive order expanded emergencies to hit our exports. But Oxford Economics warns of 500,000 job losses in escalation. Trump's sarcastic tweets mock our efforts, but Carney's task forces seized more labs in BC than ever per 2025 figures. How dare a leader exploit deaths for political gain? The content's ripple effects, steel prices surging 23%, housing affordability worsening per Freddie Mac, tied directly to Trump's fentanyl-fueled tariffs, delaying U.S. infrastructure under his $1.2 trillion act. Allies like Japan reassess, hinting at redirecting trade. Carney amplifies this as Trump's failure. Critiquing. Carney's technocratic calm wins hearts, while Trump's ego risks recession. What legacy leaves a trail of broken trusts? Alberta's indigenous equity in the pipeline reduces conflicts, funding carbon-neutral goals by 2050. Trump ignores, condemning him for displacing ethical supply. Isn't it clear who's truly acting? Carney's grand bargain. Minerals leverage for fair deals, condemning Trump's vassal vision. End of part 1. And as we expose this further, remember Trump's action is inaction disguised. His July amendment hiked tariffs, citing our failure. But Carney's trilateral pacts show cooperation he rejects. From supporters, this condemns Trump sharply. How can fentanyl fight succeed with such sabotage? Content scenarios. De-escalation needs humility. Trump lacks. Prolonged erosion cuts output, 6 to 8%. Escalation fractures. Isn't Trump's spin collapsing under scrutiny? He claims security, but Canada's trusted for decades. His rigidity stalls nationwide. What if unity trumps division? Carney's modernization. Removing caps, prioritizing pipelines, funds innovation. Trump blocks. How ironic that greatness breeds weakness. Downstream losses dwarf gains. Carney exposes the paradox. Isn't sovereignty worth fighting for? Carney reframes federation. Provinces lead against Trump's delay. Could this awaken global pushback? Energy security continental. Carney benefits allies. Trump weakens. What path when bullies falter? Triggers like union responses narrow options. Carney watches, condemns spiral. How long tolerate tragedy's exploitation? Carney's equity endures. Trump's threats fracture. Isn't the truth undeniable? Carney's people-focused. Trump ego-driven. Could Canada emerge stronger? Pivot to powerhouse. Unlock energy. Open markets. Bargain wisely. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video interesting, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything.